Okay, well, welcome to episode 11 of our 20 for 2020 webinar series. Today's topic is going to be about NFPA 1401, recommended practice for fire service training records and reports. I should say reports and records as it's written there on the slide. So welcome everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us today. We're going to jump right in and get started. So quick overview. We're going to do our introduction, go over the objective for today like we always do, give a quick rundown of emergency reporting, who we are, especially if you are new to the emergency reporting family or interested in becoming part of the emergency reporting family. Quick look at the system features, and then we're going to dive right into NFPA 1401 and training records and how they're managed within emergency reporting and show you some best practices. Before we get started, I know those of you that have joined me before know I like to do some polls, some questions here. So if you take a look at your screen, I'm going to run a couple of these right now. First one, what type of agency do you work for? So we've got career, volunteer, combo, federal, or DoD. Excellent, you guys are quick today. All right, going to close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Almost identical to last week. So we've got about 20% career and then an equal split between volunteer and combo. Fantastic. Okay, a couple more coming your way. And we like to know, because we open this up to not just our existing customers, but to people interested in becoming part of the emergency reporting family. We're just curious, are you a customer or are you seeking to find the best RMS on the planet? All right, a couple more people need to vote on 3, 2, 1. Okay, well, good. We do have somebody, at least 1 or 2 people new that are interested in becoming part of the emergency reporting family. So I hope you find today's presentation valuable to you. And then, of course, if you are an ER customer, you'll definitely learn some best practices on managing your training records today. So fantastic. All right, now, got a couple questions pertaining to today's topic. So, do you document your training based on NFPA 1401? So yes, no, sort of, or what's NFPA 1401? All right, you guys are nice and quick today. All right, closing on 3, 2, and 1. Hey, this is most interesting. Let's check this out. Okay, so some of you are clearly know what NFPA 1401 is. And I think most of us, I would say my old department, and when I was working there, same would be a sort of. We adhere to probably elements we don't even realize we adhere to. But if you haven't, and we're going to take a look at NFPA 1401 a little bit in depth today, because it's I think a particularly good NFPA standard. It's not one of the super long ones, and it really helps lay out a roadmap for documenting your training, and it gives some great examples too. So whether or not you know it or not, you are adhering at some level to NFPA 1401, but after today's presentation, you'll probably be able to go even quite a few steps further to do an even better job in adhering to it. It's a good standard. All right, last one. Thank you guys, this is great. So currently, how do you document your training records? In ER, in another RMS, in spreadsheets or other electronic documentation, or on paper? All right, closing on 3, 2, and 1. Let's look at those results. Okay, so again, this would stand to reason. Many of you are already emergency reporting customers, so you're documenting your training there. So we're going to show you, you're probably doing a really good job as it is. When maybe you'll walk away with some tips to take it to the next level. Another RMS, which would make sense because there's at least 1 or 2 of you that are new to the emergency reporting family. Some are still doing spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets, or other electronic documentation. And then, as expected, there are still some that just do it on paper or some combination thereof. So Paper, sometimes you got to get signatures on paper and things like that when people attend the class, but you can't pull data out of paper, and that's what makes it really challenging. So hopefully the 8% of you that are doing paper will be able to transition out of that and realize that if you do something paper, that you could scan it in and upload it into the training record within emergency reporting. And I'll show you how our system tackles all of that. So, hey, thanks so much for participating in all these polls. It really helps us understand who's joining us on these presentations, and to make sure we tailor the presentation to truly meet your needs and answer questions that you might have. So sure appreciate that. So pressing on, that's me. I'll be your presenter today for the next about hour. And I spent 22 years in the fire service in Southern Arizona, retired, I guess graduated, here as a battalion chief back in 2013. Been with emergency reporting as a user since 2004. Became part-time employee in 2011, then full-time in 2013. And just recently have been assigned as a business development analyst, supporting our sales team, working with key accounts, and sharing, spreading the good news of emergency reporting, kind of a ER evangelist, so to speak. So here we are to today's objective. All right, so we like to keep these short, sweet, focused. How can I better document training? And that encompasses all training you do in the fire department, in your fire department, that is user-friendly, highly comprehensive, easily reportable, and adheres to NFPA 1401. So let's break that down. User-friendly, to me, I look at that first and foremost as the people doing the training. Can they enter the training into a system so that you're capturing data you can trust? Is it consistent? Is it of high quality? Does it meet all of your expectations as an organization on what you're training on, any standards that are applicable? And can I go do a drill or a class, come back and enter? I don't have to spend a half an hour logging my training. I can get in and get out and make it, trustworthy for my training officers, my chief officers to pull the data from. That to me is a key element of the user friendliness, what the data going in. The highly comprehensive part is it capturing everything I need to capture as an organization? And then for probably those of you that are joining us today, the purple one is your part, easily reportable. You need to tell the story. You're a training chief, administrative assistant, administrative manager, a chief officer at another level, and you need to be able to capture all of that training. Say for ISO, you need to improve your ISO score. You need to document all of the required training that your agency provides or offers internally. And you need to also track, okay, if I require this training, how are my troops, what's the progress they're making towards it? Do I have to go through each person and mentally go through and, okay, they've completed 5 out of 6 classes and they did this one, but they need to complete that one. We need to make that as easy as possible. And thankfully, emergency reporting does a really good job in helping you with that. And then of course, what we'll talk about here next is NFPA 1401, the standard that governs our training records. So what I'm going to do next is we're going to go look at a little bit about who emergency reporting is. Those of you that are new to who we are, this is a rundown of who we are, how many people are in our system, almost 500,000 now. We're well over 6,700 departments we serve worldwide. The Agile software development is a process whereby we develop our software. There's always something changing in the system. Every 2 weeks we release that. There's nothing to install because we're software as a service. So every time you log in, you are using the latest version of emergency reporting. And unlike the fire service where we can go run a call, take care of Mrs. Smith, come back, get our own report done, and there's that sense of done, well, software is never really done, like I had mentioned a few seconds ago, and that's why we're always improving it and putting new releases out every 2 weeks, whether they're bug fixes, enhancements to the system, significant changes like we've done recently with the user interface and some of our modules. We have an uptime of this is 4 nines, and we're pretty close to that. We're really 3 nines, but it means we're up a lot. Usually if there's any down, if there's any downtime with the system, it's usually not so much us, but usually internet connectivity where you're at. We have a very robust, very reliable system and super secure as well. We have We do have support that is 24/7. Now, when I say 24/7, that doesn't mean we have someone in the office 24/7. We have someone there basically from 06:30 Pacific time to 5:30 Pacific time. And then priority one, what we would call priority one tickets if the system's down for whatever reason, that is monitored 24/7. And all of our support personnel are based out of our Bellingham, Washington office, and Bellingham is about an hour and a half north of Seattle, not too far from the Canadian border. And then, of course, we support agency compliance with many standards. That's just 3 of them listed there. And then, of course, we'll be talking about the one today, 1401. And we're very pleased to have the entire enterprise contract. In other words, we serve all of the fire and emergency services for the Marine Corps and for the United States Army. And our 4 pillars are on the right there: compliance, again, adhering to standards; operations, being able to essentially run your entire department with our system. I'm going to skip relationships because I'm going to come back to that. Data, which is at the core of what we do. We help you manage your data, store it, report on it, and make good decisions off of it. And then really where I like to focus on is in the yellow there, our relationships, building those relationships, because data drives the fire service, but at the end of the day, it's humans in the driver's seat, and we're still a very human-based business in how we work with our customers. And I say that coming from the fire background. Now, emergency reporting is the same thing. Just because we're a technology company, if we don't really focus on the people behind using our product, then we're just another software company. And I think that's one of the things that differentiates us from our competitors. 16 modules in the system. One that I want you to take a look at, not today, but in your analytics. In the system, we have new, and if you haven't discovered it yet, it is BI Basic, Business Intelligence Basic. It just got released. If you go to your homepage, go to the analytics module, you will see response, safety, and now BI Basic. I highly encourage you to take a look at that. We are going to be enhancing it and releasing a pro version by 2021 that will allow you to visualize and work with your data in ways that we've never offered before. So we're very excited about that. All right, this is why you're here today, talking about NFPA 1401, recommended practice for fire service training reports and records. I'm going to hit some highlights here, then I'm going to actually go into the standard online, and then we're going to go into emergency reporting to show you how to manage all of this. Before I proceed, does anyone have any questions so far? All right, and feel free to type in any questions as we go through. I will either answer them on the fly or we'll do them all at the end as they come in. And then one thing I'd like to point out to you in your go-to webinar control panel is that we've got 4 handouts there. All right, and feel free to download them, but don't open them. Open them when we're done. And there's 4 of them. One is just our brochure about our system. So those of you that are new to us, it kind of summarizes who we are and the products we offer. And then the 3 other ones, one is a job aid for those of you that are existing customers. It summarizes the reports in the training module, kind of what they do and how they can help you tell your story. Our team, we worked on this a few years ago, and then it's been updated recently, late 2019. There's also an import sheet for training codes in the event that you wish to import training codes. And now that's something we have to do on our end, but we'll because you're participating today in today's webinar, if there's a need that you wish to import your training codes, that is something relatively new on our imports that we now offer. And then the last one is just an example of best practices for the training settings within emergency reporting, and I'll talk more about that later on in the presentation. So don't hesitate to download those attachments, those handouts there in your go-to webinar control panel. Okay, so we're going to cite just a few examples directly out of NFPA 1401, but these, while seemingly simple, and you probably think, well, I document most of this already. You're following a standard, whether or not you probably realize it, and this helps you just fine tune what you're capturing. And I will say that not only is NFPA 1401 such a good standard to follow, but I can tell you, talking with ISO personnel, we're actually working with one of them, that they've given us some guidance on what they're looking for now. They're going to be, let's just say, they're going to be more sticklers on what they're looking for in training reports. And so we're going to be enhancing a training report in our system that even serves the ISO better when they come to town to audit you. So training documents, regardless of their intent or level of sophistication, should focus on content, accuracy, and clarity. And so 4.2.2 here shows you it's the 5 W's, right? So who, what, when, where, and why. And you'll notice that as we get into the system, we capture all of those. Some other information that NFPA 1401 cites, and I won't read all of these, but you can see the 3 highlighted, right? Source of the information used. So where are you pulling, what are you using for the basis of training, method of delivery, and your objectives. So I like this one in chapter 6. So required training, we have what's called JPRs. And so what I want to mention, an NFPA standard, JPRs are what you probably think of as task sheets, okay? In our system, think of them as training performance requirements. In other words, if you have a set of training classes and or drills that your crews have to complete during a given time period, whether that's a monthly, quarterly, annually, you can actually bundle those classes into what's called a JPR into our system and very quickly and easily track their progress towards completion. And the advantage of that, when I get into showing you its functionality, is that it allows you, the troops, to take that class anytime during that time period, say it during the month. So say you're going to offer a drill, or you have to go do a minimum company standard drill, engine 3/4 attack with supply on a second story, fire attack as an example. The crews can do that anytime during the month, and as long as they create that class in our system from a template, they'll get credit for it, and you'll be able to ascertain their progress towards completion very, very easily, and I'll show you that. But this is how that part of our system adheres to chapter 6, particularly 6.1 here, on the evaluating effectiveness of the training records. All right, so let's go. This is a shout out to anybody who selected paper during our poll questions earlier on. Most training records should be maintained in their entirety in a computerized form, thus greatly reducing the amount of paper that needs to be stored. So those of you, if you have to make a compelling case to your decision makers on going to an RMS that allows you to track training electronically, you want to cite 7.1.4. Okay, and that'll help make your case that paper, while we're not really ever going to be a paperless organization, we can be a paper minimal organization, and you can't pull data out of paper. So this can help you make that transition. Record keeping is not an end in itself. So what I like to think of, my analogy is this. You're a movie, all right? You are a great movie that tells a story, your department. Records management software are the special effects. You want the special effects to serve the story, not the other way around. We've all seen movies where it's all special effects and no story. It's pretty hollow, doesn't really do much, and it doesn't leave us with a good feeling when we walk out of the theater. But a movie where it's a great story, in this case, a great department that has a lot to tell, highly performing, maybe accredited, maybe improving their ISO scores, the RMS is working in the background to help tell that story and to make that department look great. That's kind of my analogy when it comes to how an RMS should serve an organization, and that an organization shouldn't be slaves to their RMS. And so even NFPA 1401 mentions it here. The purpose of the objective, of the training process is to improve the overall performance of the individual and the organization. And this standard helps you document it and to basically back it all up with facts. All right, let's jump in and close this out. And we're going to go right here first. So what I've got loaded here is nfpa.org. Highly recommend, if you haven't done so already, sign up, and you can go view any of these standards for free. Now, if they limit you, you can't copy and paste or print anything out, but you can certainly review this. And sometimes that's all you need to review it. And of course, you can see I stole screenshots for my presentation, but I've got it opened up to a page. On the right panel here, I've got the table of contents. all right? And this isn't a long standard. Now, I'm a firefighter, retired anyway. I like pictures. There's no pictures here, so hang in there with the standard, all right? You want you want to look at it, study it. They're not exciting reads, but they are reference documents that really can take your department to the next level. And this is a particularly good one. So we could start with definitions. Some have pages and pages worth. This is relatively short. And then in chapter 4, which you saw that I had cited previously, it tells all about what the elements of training documents should encompass. All right, there's that section I printed. There's another one I grabbed. Okay, and so use this kind of as a benchmark to see, okay, we're doing really good in documenting the who and the what, but we're not really doing a great job on the why. Okay. The other aspects I want to show you here is chapter 7, the legal aspects. Again, this isn't a long law book here, but it does reference the legal aspects of documenting training. And the reason I mention this is firefighter injuries, line of duty deaths, one of the things that they pool anytime this happens are not only equipment records, right, maintenance records, which is another topic for another day, but training records as well, all right? Let's say we had a backing incident. Well, if something really untoward happens during that backing incident, someone's significantly injured or killed, one of the things they're gonna ask is, did that firefighter or firefighters have driver training inclusive of backing? Okay, and so this talks a little bit about the legal aspects. And again, if you're trying to make a case to enhance your training record management for your department, this whole chapter, not a long one, can help you make that case. Other thing I want to go straight to is Annex B. Don't forget the annexes in the NFPA standards, because in this particular case, they've got some examples. So what's being documented, and you can see we align quite well here, but even in our system, I think we have opportunities to do a little bit more. Not much, but just a little bit, but you can see how they've broken it down, okay? And then you've got this really great list, and I believe they're bringing this from Illinois, but you can see these, to me, these are your training codes. And if you look at your handouts that I sent you, ours follows this very, very closely. So training codes, the what, right? Of the 5 W's, the what you're training on. Yeah, this one's Illinois. Breaks it down really nicely. So you could, right here, just in this example, you can cross-check, hey, am I covering all the things we could possibly be training on? And of course, this is just a simple sign-in sheet, which we offer you as well. All right, so I'm gonna put this link into the chat that you can go ahead and reference. It'll probably ask you to log in. You can create a login, but check your chat. There's a link there. And without further ado, let's go into the system. So this is the standard, a quick run through of it. Thankfully, it's not a super long standard. Every training officer should have this on their desk as a reference, my opinion. And then we'll go into emergency reporting directly. Where does all this take place? Right here in our training module. All right, we're gonna go straight to it, but before I do, in support of 1401, I want you to take a look in your accounts, if not now, later, under notifications. There are 2 areas that I want you to look at. One is training. You have the ability, and each person in your department that uses emergency reporting has the ability to check this box. I like showing class details. And then by just doing that, and say none of this was checked here, it will show any classes that are I'm enrolled in for today. But that's not enough. In addition to today's enrolled classes, I'd like to see what's coming up in my organization for the next 30 days that I'm enrolled in. And better still, I want to see any scheduled classes that I might be interested in taking in the next, say, 30 days. Now, you can put whatever a value you want to put in here as far as the days into the future. And then if I'm an instructor, training officer, I'll check this next box, show classes for which I am on the list of instructors. And then if I manage the classes in the system, I can show any classes that are pending completion and or review. And then we have the ability, if you haven't taken advantage of it, you can show any pending approvals for people wishing to take classes in the system. So I've set that up as such here to show you how it works. And then the other one that is of great value is the certifications, displaying certifications that are expiring within so many days into the future or that have expired in the past. Now, as a training officer or someone with sufficient permissions to access the system, they can see their entire organization. As a firefighter, I will just be able to see my own, all right? And so these last 3 radio buttons won't appear. So I clicked everything. I'm gonna click save. And then if there were changes, it would refresh. But one of the things I have now is the ability to see I have these overdue classes, which means they probably just need to be documented and closed out. I am not enrolled in any classes for the next 30 days. And there's not any classes that I'm an instructor for, and there's no open classes. This is a demo account, so it's certainly not pretty, but it will give you an example of how this all works. And so instead of trying to deep dive into the training module to run filters and find everything, as soon as I log in each day, I can see the status of my organization, upcoming training, past due classes, and I happen to have one student that would like to join a class. Who might that be? I click that link. Orange text is a hyperlink. Jay wants to take this class as a test class. Tim's the lead instructor. I can go in and approve or deny the class, say, because it's full. And then again, I can send Jay an email and a message in the message center. So he'll get either that acknowledgement. And as soon as I do that, that particular class, Jay is now automatically added to the roster. So I don't have to go manually add him later on. So I don't know if any of you have taken advantage of our pending request feature, but it's pretty cool. And that was a good example that there was one pending that I could show you today. And then of course, back on the home page too, managing certifications. And again, that's progress towards completion of training and organizational standards, local standards, state standards, like your EMS certification. And right now, I can see that these personnel have upcoming expired or expiring certifications, and no one's expired within the past 90 days. And again, with the orange hyperlink, I click once and I'm going to go ahead and update Dave's certification and can renew it. So if it's well, it won't be because it'll be expired. So all I have to do is click renew and put in the new renewal date, say today, expires in 2022. Any notes, upload the new cert, click save. And so now what happens is it'll show when it was originally granted, when it was renewed, when it's going to expire next. And what's really great is I can have all my paramedic cards listed historically here. So I have the initial file attached here and then any subsequent files. So the latest one always shows in the record and in their profile, but I can also go back and look at all of my previous medic cards or any other certificate that I would have earned. That's from the welcome page. Let's go in the training module. Any questions so far? All right, CE none, we will press on. Okay, so the main grid. Before we even go into the main grid, I want to talk about settings. All right, thinking back to 1401, the 5 Ws, right? Organizationally, your class categories are your broad folders. They're your big envelopes. They're your big buckets for the types of training that you're going to be providing. High level topics like this. Again, even this demo count is not what I call optimal, but you can get an example, get some examples here, okay? Admin, don't get too deep on your descriptions. There should be relatively few of these. These are the big branches on the tree of training. Training code categories. So over the years, I've always talked that these are the medium-sized branches on the tree of training, and they get a little more detailed. I still stand by that, but I also like to mention that I've seen a lot of customers match these two, so they're essentially the same, and it seems to be working really well for them. So you can get a little more descriptive here, or you can have it mirror your class categories. Keep in mind that training reports, some of the reports pull from both of these. Then your training codes. These are the small branches on the tree of training. They are the details. They are the what of what you're training. The middle column is your code. This category refers back to the second tab here. And that list, both in NFPA 1401, that can serve as a great foundation. The example I gave you also almost mirrors this, if it's not exactly, pretty darn close. Okay, so that to me is what you start populating here. And then of course you'll want to add in NFPA 1401 is not going to cover a lot of your EMS training. So you'll want to add those, specialized training, things like that. Locations, where the training takes place. Now you can add these on the fly as you create classes too. So don't stress about trying to get every possible location entered here. Resources, this tab allows you to put in, and it's really for any instructor that would say you're the main instructor and you've done it for a long time and you know what you need to teach. I go teach emergency reporting. I got to make sure I've got all my adapters, my laptop, and so forth. But someone's going to come in and fill in for me. You can add these resources to a class, so it's kind of a checklist for that instructor. Task sheet categories are your buckets, your folders for the types of task sheets that you may want to load into the system. And you can load any of those that are applicable to your organization here on the task sheets tab. Some people might store them in our library, and that's fine too. But in order to really make use of them in the training module, you want to make sure that they're loaded in this tab here, the task sheets, what NFPA defines as JPRs. General settings, a couple things to take away here. My preference, okay, at the minimum, are these two are checked. Why do I have these two checked? This allows you, by checking both of these, to refine the training hours per person per training code. In other words, it gives you maximum flexibility for assigning the hours correctly for each class by training code and by individual. If someone leaves early, someone stays late, they spend more time on a particular topic than another, you can actually refine that in the training record itself. The hide master task sheets would just hide them, and then of course the master codes, don't worry too much about those right now. Not going to be a major functional component of the training module, but they are there. And remember, throughout the system, when you see a little question mark, click on it because you'll probably learn something. I know I do. Sometimes I forget, and it's like, oh, I'm glad the developers put that in there. This last one is relatively new. If you haven't visited this page since you became an ER customer, you might say, well, what's that require student verification? I will show you that. And what that means is it will allow the system to accept a student verification through their profile. And this was developed for our Department of Defense customers in lieu of them having to capture a wet signature. And I'll show you how that works. Don't forget to click save on this page to save your changes. The last tab, oh, you kicked me out, hold on. The last tab is standards. And that to me is, it may be last, but certainly it is not least. And so you want to take a look at this one and ensure that the standards, we put them in a separate tab. The product owner, his name was Bob Burton, who developed this. We lost him a couple years ago to cancer, unfortunately. He was a 30-year retired training captain out of Yakima, Washington. But when he explained what he developed here, I was like, this is great, because the training codes are what you're training on, but sometimes what you're training on, there could be multiple standards that are applicable. So I might go do a drill in a live building, and so that could apply to an ISO 580A, B, and C, for example. And I want to capture that in the class itself, and we are able to run reports against the standard for the different individuals that this applies to. So I'll show you how that works, but this is where you add the standards both for state, local, national. Okay, I've got a question here, so let's take a look at what question or questions we've got going on. Okay, Sean and Brian both have questions. Sean, are regular users able to upload scans of their own certifications? Okay, so the answer to that is yes, if you grant them permissions to do so. Now keep in mind, it doesn't let them just add certifications for themselves. They could add it for others. Right now, it's typically managed by training officers, by chief officers. However, what I have found and what I recommend is if you're going to do batch entry, which in other words, when I say batch, you can't automatically just bring in 50 certifications magically into our system. I wish, but we can't. But in the event that you are deciding, hey, we want to get everyone's certifications into emergency reporting, my recommendation, and you know your organization's best, is to give them the permission, say the company officer, let the company officer, so delegate it down as low as you can, let the company officers collect and start bringing them in. That way you're not having one person for a 50-person organization or larger trying to get all those certifications in. And you'll teach them how to do it, and you don't have to give them administrative privileges to the admin module, because if you give them sufficient privileges to the training module, okay, over here, they can do it just via the training module, not through admin. So I hope that answers your question, and that would be my recommendation. And the labor intensive work is on that front end and getting it all in, but once it's in, then it's just management. So, but it's well worth it. I've seen some great examples of how our customers are doing it. Okay, so another question, how do we handle an expired cert that may not ever be used again? Just keep it in, you can just keep it in the system, all right? It's you can delete it if you want, but I personally would just keep their certs in there. But it's really your call on how you like to manage something that's expired that may never be used again. So say they take basic CPR as the example you give to get the cert, and they take EMT, which now includes CPR. They complete the class, get their EMS cert, EMT cert, but the basic CPR keeps on telling me expired. How do I properly handle that? Well, you still have to recert your CPR every 2 years, and so you can either, when they recert their EMT, apply that to the basic CPR and recert it at the same time. Okay. Or delete it. I personally would like to keep the CPR. In most cases, should be a separate cert also, even though it's bundled with an EMT program. So I hope that it answers it. And the only way to suppress it on the front page is to get rid of it altogether, or to push out that expiration date to a much further, a longer date, much later into the future. But because it's CPR and that's still, you don't get that in perpetuity, it's still something that has to be recertified. I would tie it, I would still keep it, and then have it when you recert your EMT, then recert that CPR certification at the same time. And then Sean, following up, understood. Wasn't sure since I heard you say they could only see their own based on settings. Great question. That's based on, you're right. That's under normal circumstances when you're not granting them permissions to manage their certifications. When you throttle on their ability to manage certifications, then they're able to see others' certifications. And that would be a temporary granting of permission, so you could get all those certs in the system and then shut them back down to their normal, I can only view my own certifications once they're all entered into the system. Just use caution there. Because it's not based on a per person basis, so they could in theory add certifications to other individuals via the training module. So both great questions from Brian and Sean. Thank you guys. All right, going next, back into the main classes here. So here's the meat and potatoes of it all. The main grid, and you can see the grids are really, they're just easy to work with. You've got the columns at the top. You can sort and filter. In most cases, sort. In all cases, sort. In some cases, filter. If you can type in a text and find in, hey, I just want to see my all my annual extrication classes, I can filter that accordingly, and then you can see all of the other options here as well. Before I dive into any one of these classes, I want to show you the three icons on the left or on the right here: print, edit, archive. The print, you've got options here. Now, the sign-in sheet. The sign-in sheet is going to include all personnel that are already on the roster. So it's not the entire department. So keep that in mind as this is being created. Okay, there's nobody registered for the class, so therefore I don't have anybody on it. Now I want to show you something. Okay, so keep that in mind on the sign-in. So if you don't have them added to the roster of the class, it won't show anything. And then this will filter down based on once they're on the list by their station, shift, and division. But I want to show you something in reports. If you need to capture wet signatures or you just want a sign-in sheet to document later. Okay, let me see how it's in our, is it a dash? I've got these 3 results here. So keyword search, sign dash in, gives me these 3 sign-in sheets with active personnel. This is the master list of everybody in my department. I can filter by station. So let's say, well, I'm just going to show everything because I have no idea who's at what station in this department. This is your master list of people. So you could use these as your sign-in sheets when they walk through the door. Me personally, I'd bring this out into PDF, get a tablet in your class and have them sign it with their finger or a stylus. And that way you've got an electronic version, save it, and then you could upload it to the files tab of the class itself. Just a thought. So sign-in reports will give you sign-in sheets. I'd like to have them up just like some buttons here. You could just click on them. That'd be kind of fun. All right, let's go into a class. All right, so a lot of the elements mentioned in NFPA 1401 are all listed here on the info tab. Just like an incident report, green is good to go, red means something is required that needs to be entered before you can complete the class itself. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is if you've built a class, so let's say one of your firefighters goes out and does a drill and they went and entered a class manually. So they manually entered all of this and you go as a training officer, man, this is great. You can actually make a template from this class to be used in the future. That saves a ton of time because when you go create a class from a template, all of this key stuff is filled out. Now you keep the instructor blank because that's going to change. Let them add the instructor. You can see that's red and required, but I can add who the instructor is. I can also bring in an outside instructor if I wanted to and enter their name. And then I have the ability to have the instructor type as a lead, assistant, or evaluator. And we have reports that pull against those. So you can see the classes you've instructed or evaluated for. Okay. And what I would normally have done on a template is I would also have the hours for the class itself if it's a recurring class. And now you can see that that went green. So I'm going to run through these fields very quickly. Class name obviously is what you're training on. The description of the class itself at that moment. Class category, remember back to settings, that's the broad big bucket folder. Station. So remember I mentioned the question marks here? This is not necessarily where the class took place. This is the station that once this class is completed will populate in your logbook. So what does that mean, logbook? The daily log, anytime you complete a class, so when I go and we'll complete this today, in fact, I'm going to make this today so it'll appear in today's logbook. And so what that means is as long as you've done this in admin, so bear with me here, we're going to bounce to admin real quick, that you have set a default activity code for training, it will automatically populate with that activity code in the daily log. There are 6 things in our system that automatically populate when you do them in your daily log, which is great. It's less data entry. One of them is training. And so part of what you want to track throughout your day on the job is what did you do? And one of the things you almost should all be doing every day is training, because every day is a training day, right? So this allows you to capture it. And I'll show you how that works here once we complete this class. So that's not necessarily, though it could be, but it's not necessarily where the class takes place. That's down here under location. Resources, remember that was part of the settings. Again, an optional field. I don't see this used a lot, but it is available to you. Training codes. Now, you can build the class from a template, and if you need to add a training code because you're piggybacking on additional training based above and beyond what was part of that template, you can certainly do that. Okay, so let's say we're going to do some CPST training along with it. You can add that to the class. And again, I'm just showing you how it works functionally. Okay. Standards, if you want to apply any standards to the class, of course, the location, and then the objective. This is one of the things where we're talking with ISO. They're looking more for this now than ever before. And so one of the things we're going to be talking about internally is, do we make this a required field, or at least can we make make this a field that you, the user, can turn on as required, so that you have to enter that as part of a training class. And we're thinking that that may be a good path to take. Again, it would be set, you would determine whether it's required or not. We wouldn't make it that way for you, but you could turn it on as a red field. Then your narrative, again, those of you that are ISO, start thinking about using this a little bit more. This is woefully underutilized, but it allows you to capture a syllabus, a summary, an outline, anything that you want to add about the class. It's good to park right here in paragraph format or bullet format. The Files tab allows you to attach files, links to videos that may be too big, that you couldn't do by a file, which is about 25 megabytes. You can load as much as you want here, just each file can't exceed approximately 25 megabytes. So then you can defer to a link, and then you can add task sheets. Remember, all those task sheets are stored in settings. That's why it's important to put them there, not just in the library, or not even in the library at all. But in order to be able to use them effectively and tie them quickly, I'm just going to attach one right away. And so now I just attached that task sheet to it. So remember, students can go in and grab all this information and prep for the class or refer back to it after the class is over. You can also upload your sign-in sheet that we just talked about, that you got all those electronic signatures for if you wanted to. People. So we're going to add agency personnel. I love this picker, okay? This is one of my favorite pickers in the whole system. Here's why. I can filter name, rank, shift station, but I can also pick from daily roster. Now this is a demo account, but if you're using our daily roster and you want to capture today's daily roster, everybody that attended the class, you pick that roster. You can even filter it down. I want the roster, but I just want station 1 roster. And then you can check all and add them to the class. I'm not going to add all those because I'm going to fill in a bunch of stuff. So we're going to go here, pick a few. So don't forget that filter. This, to me, when they added that, I was like, that just is genius. Okay, so we're going to click add. Grade is optional. You can see the student verification field here. All right, that is if I turn that on in settings. I'm going to fill my hours. And points can be turned on or off via payroll if you're going to document points, and many volunteer combo departments do that. And then you'll have a pay grade associated with it. It won't let you complete it until you have a pay grade associated with each person, but thankfully you can set a default, so then you don't have to go and select this every time you add people to a class. Here's what I talked about in those settings. So I'm going to open this tab so you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. Because I have checked these 2 boxes, okay, I get to go in and edit. So let's say Dave had to leave early and he missed this part of the class. No problem, I just give him 0 for that part and he'll go down to 2. And let's say Fred, or Trey, because Trey is an overachiever, we know that. He stuck around and spent a little extra time after class and got another extra hour. And so you can refine that on a per person, per training code basis. And then you can also add outside personnel. So let's say we've got Sean Sims. And Sean, what department are you from? We'll put you in there. I don't know exactly, so I'll just put that in there real fast so we can press on. And we'll save and close, whoops. And you can see Sean was added there. And you can track outside personnel as well. Then I'm gonna leave this open, all right? So you're going to see here, mismatch between class hours and student hours claimed, mismatch between student hours and training code hours claimed. Now, when I don't get the ability to put my password in to complete the class, then something's up, and it's telling me this mismatch is okay. Why? It's going to be a mismatch because the class was 3 hours long, but somebody has 2 and somebody has 4. Usually, I will have the ability to put my password in, but because it can't be completed before the date in which it occurred, which is 9 o'clock, 10 minutes from now, my local time, I want to complete this for you, so I'm going to change the time. I'm going to cheat a little bit here to show you. The system's smart enough to let you know what you can and can't do. And so you can't complete a class until the time elapses. But now, because it was 8 o'clock, I can go ahead and put in my password. And depending on my permissions, I can set this class straight to green. Okay. Most of your firefighters and instructors should only get this to yellow, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. But before I do that, I want you to see the difference now. Even though there's a mismatch, it's just a heads up warning. You're going to go, yeah, that's okay. I got different hours for different people. And then you've got, you enter your password in here. Now, I'm not going to do that because I want to go back real fast under the home page, and you will see that I have a class that is still open. See that? It's not overdue yet, but it's open. I can click into it, and now I'm ready to close it out. And now I have a completed class. All right, so the other part of the grid and the training component I want to show you is right here under your templates. You can create a class template, and remember, you can do it directly from a class itself that's already been created, or if you want to start building your training program and you know that these are how I want my crews to enter training when they go do X, this saves them a ton of time. I could go out, if I build this out right, I can go do just about any drill my department wants me to do or class, come back and have it filled out in a matter of a couple minutes. So for example, let's just say we're going to do driver operator training course. I'm going to build that class from a template. Because we're running out of time, I won't be able to show you, but you can set recurring classes. So if that class is going to be offered, say A, B, and C shift today or this week, I can create those classes, basically clone them for all those 3 instances, and it makes it super fast to enter the data. So we'll just do one. Whoops, that's what I get for going too fast. Today, 0800. So when I add this class, so I'm coming back, entering my training. See how everything's filled out for me? Firefighters love this because they don't have to worry about it. They say, what if I go out and do a drill, all of us on today will probably enter different things in different training codes. This prevents that inconsistency and ensures a high quality of data. And so if classes are built by templates, you have this magic right here under the JPR. You have bundled classes. So for example, we have this test for virtual Thursday. We did this a long while ago, but it serves as a good example. I have basically bundled those 2 class templates for this JPR. In other words, for this month, August of 2014, could be this month, I need to take an EMT refresher and my annual extrication update. Who has to take them? Okay, these 2. It says 3 out of 5. It's probably been edited and somehow something didn't get updated, but nonetheless, this tells me that 3 out of 5 have completed it. Not sure where those other 3 are hiding from me, but then 2 people have not completed it. And then what do they have to take those 2? It will tell you what they need to complete, okay? And so once you lock that, you can actually create a certificate or certification that will then be added to their certifications in the certifications tab there. So that's another bonus of this, is once they complete those series of classes, you can actually have the system create a certificate for them and add it to their certifications. And then the report, so this gives you a tabular look at it, but the report that you want to look at, system. Actually, this is not system, this is Safari. There's an update to the browser that is causing it to log out on me. But report number 1688, if I want to look back, say I want to capture a wide date range here. So I'll go back to 2018 to 2020. This particular report, this is what I was mentioning earlier, that progress towards completion that's also mentioned in NFPA 1401. I can see the progress towards completion on these JPRs. And so again, this is showing not completed. I wonder if I have one that has some completion to it. When you And when we get a nice clean account that's making use of this fully, this is a fantastic report. So this JPR is 2017 Annual Required Admin Training. These are the 4 templates that they need to complete. Once they do complete it, the class name, which may be different from the template, which is okay, as long as the class is created from the template, you'll have the class name, data was completed, and then the percent towards completion. Let me see if I've got one with some partial completion here. Yeah, there we go, there's one. So that was test for Austin RTC. That was the class name, data was completed, and they're 25% towards completion. All right, well, that gives you a really good rundown today of a look at NFPA 1401. Don't forget to take a look at it in detail, okay? And then how emergency reporting can help you adhere to that standard and to quickly and easily document your training. We talked about the settings here in the training module. We talked about notifications on the welcome page so you can easily see upcoming training, sign up for classes, okay? And then bundle those classes by use of templates to manage JPRs and to track progress towards completion of agency mandated training. And then we could spend a whole session on all of the different training reports that you can extract from your training records for ISO compliance, for accreditation progress, and just even reporting internally to track all your hours for training that your department's doing every day and every month. 2 quick things to close out with that I know I had mentioned that I want to show you. One, if I see a class that I'm interested in, remember how I approved Jay for attending that class? If I want to take a class, I can click sign up request and I can send a message to the lead instructor. It'll go to email if they have one associated with them. If I check that box, it's not showing because he doesn't have an email. I can send it to my boss, my supervisor, and they will see that I'm interested in taking this class. So if you're going inter-office between 3-part memos for training requests, you can pretty much eliminate that by using the sign up request. The last thing I had mentioned was that back here on student verification, what that does is gives you the ability, if it's turned on, under my profile, to click here under training class verification to see any classes that need to be verified. So if you've taken a class and you appear on that list where it needs verification, that person can go in, and only that person can go in under their profile and verify that they took that class, and that will then go to show that they verified it. And we do actually have a report that runs against that. 1762. And so you can see, and we'll see how we're looking here. A lot of filters, and this will show you that Dave is not verified in your electrification update class. All right, I know we covered a lot. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap up for today? Oh yeah, there's some that bounced in. Okay, I was so focused earlier. Let's get to those questions. Okay, Oak Ridge, Sean. All right, right on. Thanks for getting that in there. And from Brian, so reoccurring is for the same class, different multiple times. Exactly, different days, multiple times. How about a class that lasts? Oh, this is a good one. So how about a class that lasts multiple days? You get a choice here on how you want to manage this. All right, there's 2 ways to do it in the system. Great question. So let's say you got an annual extrication update. So I went to a great extrication update class. It was a multi-day class in Santa Fe, New Mexico many years ago. So you have an option here. Let's unlock this thing. And I'm going to leave the choice up to you. I have a preference, but I will let you choose your preference. You can, because it was requested by many of our customers, you can actually put in, see how you got 3 digits here for their hours? If you go to National Fire Academy, you could put in the whole 2-week class in one entry. Or you could just put each day as a separate entry. I like the separate entry for each day, but some customers wish to put them all into a single entry. You can still do that. And so that gives you the ability to not limit yourself to just 24 hours, or I guess 99 hours if we had two digits here. You can go up to 999 hours for a class if you wanted to do that. So you've got options there. Curvin, he goes, when a JPR is completed for a time frame, i.e. March, should it be deleted after a period to keep the screen simple? A great question. I would say no. The reason I say no is then you want to title this, because yes, you're going to run this for multiple years. Call this 2014 and click save. And that way you've got a historical record per year. That's my preference. You can delete, or you can or what some departments have done is they keep the title, they just change the date frame. Same templates, different date frame for the new year. It's your call. I'm partial to keeping that document solid, and so yeah, it will make this a longer page to scroll through. But if you're documenting it nice and cleanly, you can have the year as the prefix. So I might have 2014. Now I do this. Don't do it by the text. Do it this way. Otherwise, it won't go in alphabetical order. So for January, I goes 2014-01, February 02, 03, and it just keeps it nice and clean. Otherwise, it's going to sort it alphabetically and it won't be in chronological order. Outstanding questions. All right, 2 more to go. How do students know to sign a class document? Oh, never mind. He's got never mind. Okay, yeah, it goes back to my profile, Rissel. I hope I said your name right. Another question from Curvin. If the date changes, will it auto reset the completions? Yeah, so if you change the date, all of a sudden now, if they didn't complete the class during that time period, if they were 2 out of 2 for 2019, and now they'll be 0 out of 2 for 2020. Guys, what a great session today. Your questions have been awesome. We're going to be doing more of these. We're working on the schedule for our next batch of 20 for 20 webinars. I hope you're finding them valuable. And the recording will be posted later today for this one. Don't forget the handouts on the GoToWebinar control panel. And we'll see you all again. It might even be next week, actually. I got to get with our team and see when we're doing our next one. But you'll see them on the login page. You'll see the carousel, and you can click and register for the upcoming classes. So I appreciate everybody, and don't forget, go take a look at that 1401 standard and help make the case for better training records at your organization, and we will catch you next time.